Hey, real quick, before the show starts, if you could hit that subscribe button down below, it will go a long way to helping out the show so we can keep making college football shows every week, all year round.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein on today's show. We have LSU, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Missouri, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama, and Auburn. It is SEC Part 3. My great and good friend, it is our final team. It is our final conference preview episode. I cannot believe we made it the full way through. Welcome back, good sir.
Thank you very much. This is an exciting episode for me just because I get to stop staring at rosters and depth charts and schedules and guessing based on all of those things. And I'm very excited to get closer and inch forward to real football. We're getting dangerously close, but yes, this has been a lot. Wouldn't have it any other way. Have a lot of thoughts on all of these teams. Excited to get into it, but it's a lot of names.
It is a lot of names. So I was telling you earlier before we hit go, my wife came downstairs this morning and basically caught me in a corner just staring at my hands. Staring at my hands.
Like
and
trying
said,
to figure out your thoughts on Deshaun Spears and whether or not he's going to hold up at, nickel star for LSU in the secondary?
Yes, but also there is an element to this of looking at all these rosters, you start losing your mind a little bit. I know, woe is me. I'm not asking for sympathy, but she caught me in a virtual moment of crisis, pondering my life after studying all of these teams incessantly over the last couple of weeks. But like you said, wouldn't have it any other way. We are thrilled to be here. We are thrilled to put a bow on our previews. Go back and listen to all of the ones we've done before. There are many to choose from, whether you're in the mood for a conference or a team or just an overall look at what has transpired here in the college football offseason. We did our intro to college football way back when now, over a month ago on July the 7th, if you dig back through our feed and look to see what's available. We've got 8 teams today. I want to start with LSU.
Let's start with LSU.
I want to start with LSU. LSU is nothing if not interesting, huh?
Agree. Absolutely.
Let me start off the LSU preview with a bit of a hard truth, if you're okay with that. If
I am
got the
okay
stomach
with
for it.
Yeah.
I think anyone who claims to know anything about LSU is full of crap.
I think Lane Kiffin himself says he doesn't really know what's going to happen with LSU. So I tend to agree. Yeah.
I'm including myself, by the way.
Yeah.
When I say that, because if you go back and listen to another episode we did on the Patreon feed, the Patreon bonus feed at verballers.com, we made this free for all. But we put together an episode where you and I talked through our first AP Top 25 ballot. I was willing to go as high as number 8 for LSU. And as I was digging into this roster, I was reminding myself of why.
Yeah.
Because all too often we find ourselves saying things and then wondering about it afterwards, like, why did I say that? I don't have that wonder when it comes to LSU. I know exactly why I said it. And I still feel really good about this team. There are a bunch of great players back. Clearly, they did some work in the transfer portal, the top overall transfer portal class. But it is notable that this was not a team last year. These guys were not this team a year ago. And it's a lot of like projecting out how we think.
There's a good amount on the defense, which was this team, I think. There's a good amount.
Yeah, I would agree. But there's a lot here that is left to the imagination.
Sure.
Which I think is probably the very point that you honed in on when you were a little bit more suspicious about going that high with LSU. Is that a fair assessment?
Definitely.
So we come into this preview now, basically all new. That makes it even more ridiculous to try and project them out, but we're going to try. Bill Connolly tried. He got them at 10. Brett from Pick 6 has them at 12. Most picks that I've seen have them at worst a top 15 team. 7-6 a year ago. Brian Kelly fired. We don't need to kind of rehash all of that. There was a fair amount of drama with getting Lane Kiffin into the door, but where do you stand with LSU?
There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like, even with as much new as there is on offense. You know, as I was going through the defense and what they return, I guess Deshaun Spears is fresh in my mind, but the secondary looks absolutely loaded. What they look like in the middle of the defense at linebacker looks pretty scary, honestly. The amount of experience, both coming in via Ole Miss in this case and the return of Whit Weeks in the middle of that defense. There's a lot of upside in this in the defensive line room. There's a lot new, but you can see why it could be quite productive, especially considering the continuity at coach on this defense with Blake Baker running the defense. It's a really nice starting point. Even with the schedule that LSU has, or what the perceived difficulty in this moment of LSU's schedule, I think the entire season, the entirety of this year,
the whole thing,
the whole damn thing, is whatever it is that happens right before the snap, right after the snap on the offensive line, and when the ball is in Sam Leavitt's hand. Now, it's not a stretch to say like, well, it depends how the quarterback is. That's how the season's going to go. Of course. I don't know about this offensive line. I'm not sold on this offensive line being of playoff caliber, of being like late November contending for the SEC caliber. I understand a lot goes into overhauling an offensive line. There are very few instances of a team starting over along the line and putting together a high-level line, which is generally what you need to compete in the college football playoff and in a major conference near the end of the season. I like where they are at a lot of these skill positions. I don't know if I love whatever the ultimate pop is at receiver, but I think there's definite quality at receiver. I'm not there yet. I think they'll be good. I think Sam Leavitt is not overrated, but there are concerning elements to his game even when he's healthy.
Be careful how often you say the name Leavitt. He does
I know.
bill.
He does charge.
He charges.
That's where I'm at with LSU right now. Because look, the running back room is interesting. It might be like the Wisconsin transfer starting, right? Dylan Jones. He's been flashing at camp early on, but everything's up in the air. Jordan Seaton, hell of a headliner along the offensive line. Not necessarily known for paving the way on the ground as much as he is silencing dudes on the edge, rushing the passer. I really like LSU. I think they're going to be able to win games with defense and kind of not screwing up on offense. I love that Lane Kiffin is calling this offense. It's a lot in year one. It's a lot to ask that they are like a double-digit win team in year one to me.
I mean, it would be even more of a circus if they end up being a double-digit win team. And I'm not even saying that in a bad way, but it's fairly evident that if you followed this coaching search that got Lane Kiffin here in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it was a coaching search that involved at one point the governor, at another point scorned members of a yoga class, and then to put a bow on it all, the tender hug on the tarmac between Marty Smith and Lane Kiffin himself.
Never forget.
So we've had a lot go on in a very short period of time. Then on top of it, you had this portal haul, which brought over Sam Leavitt, Jordan Seaton, Prince Will Umanmielen, Ty Benefield, TJ Dottery, Trey Wilson, Jace Brown, Winston Watkins, Husan Longstreet. I know there are names I'm leaving out, but that's a pretty damn big haul.
Yeah.
To try and assemble all of those pieces into working order in a short period of time, and then, if he can, translate that somehow into a 9 or 10 win season. Yes, the circus continues because they're probably a playoff team. I agree with you. On the Sam Leavitt front. So Sam Leavitt missed all of spring after having foot surgery. He had some hardware removed from a previous injury that he had.
Right.
As of last week, no visible brace, no limp, seemingly no restrictions. Lane said he's all the way back. If he is back, I think he fits his system really well. And I also think he's got a lot to prove, which is not the worst combination in the world. His mobility is absolutely something that they're going to take advantage of in this offense. If it works for Kiffin in year one, it's because, A, Sam Leavitt is playing and is healthy and is able to use that mobility. It's B, because the line plays better and they can actually build something of a rushing attack. And it's C, one of, if not 2 or 3 of these running backs pop to varying degrees. And of course, I'm speaking of Caden Durham, Harlem Berry, and as you mentioned, Dylan Jones, who comes over from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like, I'm with you on the wide receiver room. I'm not fully there, but I like the names. I want to see how they use them. Mm-hmm. But I really think, in the words of the wise prophet David Pollock, it all starts up front.
Point of attack?
Point of attack.
Yeah. I think we are probably using a choice couple of games from Sam Leavitt to evaluate. I mean, look, he wasn't their first choice, maybe even not their second or third choice, but he's there. We know he has upside. But you're looking at the Iowa State game from 2 years ago and hoping to get that version, essentially. Yeah. It wasn't a particularly good game against Texas, though he put them in position to win a couple of years ago in the playoff. And last year's performances, he's hobbled, and it's unfair to judge him based on where he was or wasn't last year. But the performances weren't overwhelming for Sam Leavitt and ASU last year. Some close wins, some disappointment, and an injury. So I'm willing to believe that Lane Kiffin can get the most out of basically any quarterback, which is why I am a believer in what Sam Leavitt, as a healthy quarterback, can do this year. It's just, I have a lot of curiosity about what you can do in that first year with so much new. Because Curt Cignetti has obviously thrown everything off in terms of expectations in year one, but I don't think Lane Kiffin is Curt Cignetti. I think he's a really good coach, but I don't think he's Curt Cignetti.
I also think that he will have something of a backstop because of the defense.
Agree.
The defense is going to be a wall. Like, I'm with you. I like that.
These corners, the secondary, the back half in general.
With Whit Weeks and TJ Daugherty at linebacker. Then in front of them, you've got Prince Will Monbialen screaming off the edge. The secondary is really good talent. Maybe a bit thin, but like DJ Pickett's the anchor back there. They're really good at all three layers of that defense. It's just, honestly, to me, it's going to come down to Sam Leavitt and the line. Sounds like it could be a little honky-tonk band.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's every reason in the world to expect progress and development from what was a very good defense, all things considered, with what the offense wasn't last year. So there's terrific reason to believe that, maybe short of obvious talent on the inside of the line, I think there's obvious potential and obvious upside, but not absolute monsters or proven monsters on the inside. Some youth, some rotation guys. Aside from that, if they can stop the run and get off the field, they're going to smother everybody in that back end. So I think the starting point is great. It's a weird thing to say, like, basically 2 years after having a Heisman winning quarterback, or I guess 3 seasons after, that the concern is, different coach, different system, different everything. But like the concern is offensive pop, something they haven't been able to find consistently.
And there's not a ton of runway.
But that's why Lane Kiffin's there.
That's why Kiffin's there, but there's not a lot of runway. And
no, there's not.
If you're already kind of building this thing, trying to get some cohesion from a bunch of guys who haven't played together before, at least on, one side of the ball, it's going to be tough because they open up week 1 with Clemson. Say whatever you want about Clemson, but game's at home. I think that'll be a tough game. Week 3 is the monster game that everyone's got circled when they're on the road at Ole Miss. And then right back home in week 4 against Texas A&M. There's a softer spot on that schedule in between then and November, but then it's Bama at home, it's Texas at home, they're at Tennessee, they're at Arkansas to close. Win total is 8.5. I think for the people out there who our community, certified and premium for ballers, who can play the grand total game, the over-under game that we've got out in our Baller portal, check that out. The win total is 8.5, which is a really interesting number. It's a number that caught me off guard. I look at the schedule. I get it. Obviously, I understand the circumstances here that got us to this point in time with LSU, but that still feels really low to me. Like, I think if it works, I think they're easily over that number. If it doesn't, I still have a hard time believing they're going 8-4. Right. The talent that they've got in this roster. So I'm inclined to be a fairly confident over here, but I certainly understand the case for the under.
I think I'm over. I think they're probably a 9-win team. I don't think I can go much above that. Now, when you look at their schedule and your own private perceptions, right, of this team or of this team's schedule.
Private perceptions.
Yeah, well, look, you can't just say like, oh, they have the 7th hardest schedule. They have the 44th hardest schedule. Like, whatever you think about Kentucky or Arkansas or Auburn or Bama or Texas, that is going to color whatever it is that you think of this schedule. But there's reasonable minds that can agree that Texas A&M, Alabama, Texas, and probably Tennessee, at least after those first 3 weeks, we got Ole Miss, we don't know, But there's enough evidence with those programs right now. We're like, it seems like those are going to be challenges for everybody.
Yeah.
We're not positive what Ole Miss is going to be. They're probably going to be a team that can score some points. I'm not deeply in love with a lot of these teams on the schedule. I like a lot of these teams to varying degrees. The LSU question is going to be, how quickly can the offense come together, Sam Leavitt's health, and essentially, can they win 50-50 games? And what type of depth is going to be needed week 7, week 8, week 9, week 12, something like that? Because you are throwing together starters on the fly and backups on the fly in a lot of these cases. And they're not necessarily used to Lane's system or Blake Baker's system in terms of some of these backups and starters. So that's what I question later on in the schedule, that like they're up on Tennessee late, but they can't close the deal. And it's, 31-28 Tennessee or something like that. So 9-3 is where I land as a, guesswork projection.
9-3. Yeah, I could go 9-3. I think there's potential to go higher, but I think 9-3 is a good starting point. And I like the over. I do.
Yeah, I'm not in love with a lot of these teams. Like, you can stack them up and say like, oh man, it just keeps on coming. But then like when you actually break it down, you're like, hey, all of these teams have what appears to be pretty deep flaws. Now the home road splits or whatever, but I don't question that LSU is going to get to a good place offensively eventually. Seems like it's going to have to happen pretty quickly if you're going to be matching points against teams like Ole Miss or A&M or something. But no, there are obvious weak spots for basically all of these teams, maybe other than Texas, on this schedule.
Let's go to a team with another new coach. Let's go to the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Okay.
I feel like our Arkansas listeners deserve a little bit of respect, frankly, because I read the messages that these folks send in. They love the team as much as ever, but there is part of it that feels a bit like an abusive relationship over these last couple of years. I mean, they're just hoping against hope that something changes. I guess they got a very notable change this offseason now with them finally parting ways with Sam Pittman, going in the direction of Ryan Silverfield. Maybe we can talk through how we feel about that. Obviously, Arkansas. Obviously, Arkansas was in a position a year ago where they were a tremendous half team. Had a very good offense, had a very poor defense, and that led us in no small part to this moment in time in 2026 where we're talking about new guys, new coaches, new players, you name it.
Yeah.
I am looking for reasons to try and be optimistic about this Arkansas team. And something that I read a lot in the offseason was how it seemed as though Ryan Silverfield was able to get people to write checks. Yeah. It seemed as though that class of booster was on some level into what Ryan Silverfield was selling. If nothing more, he's just a new face who had success elsewhere that they could bring over and, maybe install a system and get things going a little quicker than expected. I still see a relatively tough uphill climb here. I don't think you can fix the defense overnight. I'm not sure there's enough certainty at the quarterback position with KJ Jackson. And just across the board, I just think this is the type of situation that's going to take a couple years if it's going to work at all. This isn't to say they have bad skill talent. This isn't to say that the offense that they're going to put in with Tim Cramsey is the worst idea.
Right.
This isn't to say that there is nothing to work with. It's not like the cupboard is fully bare. But I just think given the level of competition around the SEC, it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute. Even if Ron Roberts can coach that defense up, and I happen to like Ron Roberts a great deal.
Yeah.
I just think you look at the schedule, Arkansas might have the hardest SEC draw
could be
of any team in the conference. They're going to face 10 FBS teams that are ranked 31st or better in the SP+, including 4 of which in the top 10.
Yeah.
So speaking of no runway, speaking of having a really tough learning curve here in the first year of Ryan Silverfield, I'm not sure how Arkansas can pull that rabbit out of the hat. Maybe they'll surprise me, but I don't see a bowl here, given the schedule and given just the size of this project. And that should not be, I think, all on Ryan Silverfield. His starting point is drastically different than some of his peers in the conference who are also starting over, new coaches stepping foot on campus for the first time. So I'm optimistic that he can turn it around, and I'm optimistic because he does have something of a track record for being very successful at Memphis. He built a really nice program at Memphis.
Yes.
But I'm just like, I'm having a hard time squinting and seeing it in year one.
Yeah. I mean, even looking for 4 or 5 wins could be quite tough. And if they're more organized, if they have a good amount of health luck, I think Ron Roberts is good, as do you. I still don't see them come. Like, I like the I think it's the Maryland transfer at corner, Lakai Rowland. He was super productive, and I think is a big value add, and he was in high demand, and Arkansas was the one who was able to prime away from College Park. But I don't think there's enough talent. I don't think there's enough experience to compete on a level to get to like 6 or 7 wins in the SEC in year one. It's just, I think it's too tall an ask. Both with the schedule, the lack of experience. I don't have a lot of trust in the lines of scrimmage, and I can't get there. You look at some of the guys they brought in, and they were guys who were not performing at their previous place, and now they're going to be tasked with performing against a more difficult schedule, we think. I'm just not there. As fun as Arkansas was on offense, and as close as they were to winning many more games last season.
And they weren't that far off. They truly weren't.
No, but they also were basically exactly of Memphis quality in their close loss, right?
Yeah.
And now they hire the Memphis guy who had his team last season with a lot of these players of essentially Arkansas quality. I think it's just going to take a season or two.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, and even on the quarterback front, and I know we've talked about this before, KJ Jackson seems like he's going to be QB1. I read plenty of reports. I was listening to podcasts this offseason where even the people that cover the team were like, we think he can run the system. We think he's probably the guy, but there isn't a whole lot of confidence on that front either. Doesn't mean he can't be good. Doesn't mean he can't run the system. But I just feel like if we want to talk about LSU and a lot being new and trying to project forward what that might look like.
Yeah.
Arkansas is obviously at a much different starting point. We're not asking whether Sam Leavitt can go out there and be a productive quarterback. We're asking, can KJ Jackson run the system? And the answer is we think. That's part of why I'm a little bit more pessimistic on this team.
Yeah. I don't see much in terms of explosion in year one.
And I feel bad saying all this because the Arkansas people who write in are very nice people.
Yeah.
Just love college football. Kudos, guys. Kudos.
Yeah.
But if nothing more, change in leadership, change in philosophy, we'll see what Ryan Silverfield has in year one. It's going to be a very, very difficult uphill climb given the schedule.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the best you can hope for is there are some sandwich and moments where they're getting teams in a spillover kind of way, but like, I don't know. You can't count on letdowns and look aheads and sandwiches. Like, it's just the body blow stuff. You got to be able to get to, 27 points or keep a team under 30. And it doesn't seem like it's in the cards.
Let's go over to Texas A&M, Dan.
All right. This is the offensive line I want to talk about. Not the LSU one. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it? I mean, Texas A&M lost 4 starters off the offensive line. All of them got drafted.
Yep.
That's going to be a lot to replace. And the offensive line was very much the engine room for the offense a year ago, as part of why so many people were high on Texas A&M. So you take a look at where A&M's at this year. Again, there's a lot new on that front. I think they feel okay about the guys that they're plugging in there, but it's notable to point that out just from the jump that, yeah, this is something we relied upon a year ago. To what end can we rely upon it this year?
I don't mind having to replace 4 starters, 5 starters. I don't mind that. Teams have done that successfully. The issue I have is the amount that is new, right? With new offensive coordinator and the guys coming in specifically. The goof I was trying to make before was like from the minds who brought you like the South Carolina, LSU, and Alabama rushing attacks from last year are now charged with fixing or filling the Texas A&M offensive line. That it seems that they brought in dudes who weren't that productive. Nobody's born bad in pass protection. This is a developmental position. You can get better. You can get coached up. You can be in a system that's better built for you. You can be a tackle who's really a guard or vice versa. You can get better. There is something about this Texas A&M team that I like a good deal. I think we're probably too low as a society, as a people, on Marcel Reed. Yeah. He definitely had low moments. He just happened to have like his lowest of moments, it seems, in the final game of his season last year, in Texas A&M season. And I think there's absolute room to grow. Another year as the guy in the offseason, what should be a promising run game. Again, the offensive line is there. A good number of quality receivers.
I mean, the skill talent's really good.
It's a really nice group of guys who can score points. So I think we're all too low on Marcel Reed. When you look at the list of best SEC quarterbacks or whatever, I think he could be a little bit too low. There's a lot on the defense there's a lot to like, but it just feels less obvious right now with the Texas A&M team as a whole. I like them. I like Texas A&M, but the more I dug in, I was like, it's like two more questions than I thought I would have about this Aggie team.
Yeah. So if we hit rewind for a second, A&M went 11-2 last year. They lost their last two games of the season. The first was on the road at Texas. The next was at home against Miami in the playoff, 10-3 in that crazy wind game. Right? It was a terrible game to watch. Right. 10-3. Something that's been bouncing around in my head since that moment, and you'll know this when I say it, I will redact names to protect the innocent.
Okay.
We have a loyal listener who writes in, I presume a Texas fan, who seemingly takes issue with anything remotely true, but also nice that we say about Texas A&M.
Right.
He's never mean about it, but he's just constantly reminding us that, hey, Texas A&M, their MO is that they always fall short. In case you forgot, they always fall short.
Right.
And I usually just kind of hand wave it because I like this team. I really like Mike Elko. I maybe I'm just a hopeless romantic. I don't know. But I distinctly remember after they lost to Miami, this guy's comments. And I distinctly remembered it all throughout, for whatever reason, or better or worse, all throughout my studying process this time around as well.
Yeah.
Texas A&M falls short.
Yeah.
That may be unfair, but it's also true to an extent.
I mean, so did the Chicago Cubs.
Right.
You do it until you don't. So did the Boston Red Sox.
Exactly. Yeah. And that I think is why I kind of hand wave these things. I don't necessarily believe that the past is always going to be the future.
Right.
Especially not when you've got a good coach, you've got all the skill talent, and even if the line is replacing guys, it's still going to be a pretty good line with a good rushing attack behind it.
But I guess after the 2025 season, who would know better? Who would have that expertise in coming up short than a Texas fan, right?
Sure, exactly.
Playoff eligible. Let's get that out there. Continue.
I think I'm with you. I had more questions in looking over A&M than I expected.
Yeah.
And it's not because they don't have talent. And I also happen to really like Marcel Reed. But the combination of new play caller on offense with a defense that gave up a bunch of big plays a year ago that is now trying to figure out a way to force more turnovers, to help try and change the game on that side of the ball. That combination kind of creeped me out more than I expected.
Yeah.
I still think Texas A&M is going to be a really, really solid team. I love the fact that they bring back both Marcel Reed and Mario Craver out wide. I love that. And I think the line ultimately will be just fine. But they play 5 games after October the 25th against Alabama on the road, South Carolina on the road, which is not an easy place to play, Tennessee at home. They're on the road in Norman against Oklahoma, and then they close out the year at home against Texas. Those 5 games are all very losable, and I think they're the ones that define the season. So I think they'll have a little bit of time to kind of figure things out here. But there is going to be a stretch of games that maybe we didn't see a year ago for Texas A&M, 5 really tough games that I think are really going to put this team to the test. And we'll see what they're made of. We'll see what that play calling looks like. We'll see if Marcel Reed can acquit himself of, some of the late season failures from a year ago. That is my point of hesitation.
There was a lot to love about this defense last year. The concern now with this year is it doesn't seem like their schedule is going to break in the very specific way that it broke last year with the teams they ended up playing.
Exactly.
I'm not saying last year's run to the college football playoff and, being on the edge of the SEC championship game was only because of that. You still have to win the games. You still have to make the plays. And they produced, especially on defense, especially against the pass, especially on third down, like a terrific team should. But also, they've scored 2 offensive touchdowns against Texas these past 2 seasons, right?
Right.
There's a little bit left to be desired against the best of who they could be playing. Yeah. And so I'm still very much in on what Texas A&M can be if everything continues to grow in the correct direction and dudes emerge, be they transfers up front when it's the Northwestern Anto Saka. Is that his name?
Oh, they love him. They love him.
On one of the edges.
Yeah, they love him. They think he's going to be the next big thing.
5th-year dude.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like about a lot of this talent on all the levels. Noah McHale, a linebacker. Des Ricks in one of the corner spots. Like, there's obvious huge talent. But, yeah, something screams 8-4 to me. And it's not a Texas A&M joke. It's not intended to be like they always, win 7-8 games. I think there's opportunity to win more. But, man, I do not have a lot of trust in this offensive line right now.
I think they have a very strong case to get back to the playoff if it works, because the returning production number is still very high.
Yeah.
There is a lot back. They're 15th in the country. Obviously, included in that is Marcel Reed. The receiver room, as you mentioned, the secondary, I think, looks good. They've got really good depth back there. And to the point of this being like the portal era, they were really aggressive in going out in the portal and getting exactly what they thought they needed. They weren't spending willy-nilly. They were very targeted with how they approached that side of things. The case against Texas A&M is you've got a first-time play caller, rebuilt line, which we've spent a lot of time talking about here. They are replacing some up front on defense. Turnover margin is a broader conversation, part of why.
But that's also, that can be very random, too.
Can be random, but this is not a defense that was overwhelmingly producing those moments last year.
Right.
I think they would like more of that. That's, Lyle Hemphill, their new defensive coordinator, had a track record for doing that somewhat at JMU when he got, before he came over to Texas A&M. And the schedule. The schedule is, I think, dramatically harder this year.
Yeah.
So I think they've got enough skill talent to be there again. But for me, the hesitations that I found in going through all this were enough to really lead me astray.
Yeah.
Lead me astray from where I thought I would be. I have 9-3.
Okay.
For A&M. I could see the case for 8-4, but I think they lose early on the road at LSU, and then 2 of those other 5 games that we talked about later in the year to get to 9-3.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, something that should be mentioned is Mike Elko is excellent.
He's great.
You look at some of those close games against great teams last year, like Notre Dame early, maybe a little bit less so, and barely beating Arkansas or Auburn, those kinds of games. They win the games. They're prepared to finish 4 quarters of football. And even though the Texas game didn't go their way, even though the Miami game didn't go their way, it's much better to win those games than the opposite. And so I think they're going to be well coached. I think the rhythms of these games is largely going to come down to talent rather than putting the talent in a good place.
Yeah.
And so that's great news for Texas A&M because there is talent, there is coaching. I'm not there yet with the overwhelming nature of what this schedule could hold compared to what it didn't necessarily present last year with some of these teams being kind of down who won't be forever.
5 consecutive games against top 25 SP plus opponents.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yep.
They didn't have that a year ago. So I think we agree. I think we're still pretty high on Texas A&M. I could definitely see upward mobility with Texas A&M. That's not hard to see at all. But more questions I think than I expected.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, before we go any further, I said it at the top. I'll say it again now. Verballers.com. That's where you can go if you want to support what Dan and I do right now. We are in the process of collecting questions for an August Q&A episode that's going to drop this weekend. We also have opened up the Verballer portal, where you can go and vote in your Verballer Top 12, where you can go and play Grand Total, which is our win total game. It's kind of like a combination of what we did a few years ago, which was just tell us the over-under for every Power 4 team, and a confidence pool. We kind of mixed the two this year. So you tell us over-under for all of these teams that we're talking through right now, and then you rank them by number of confidence points. How confident are you that Texas A&M is going to have X number of wins? That's the game we call Grand Total. So that's all available. If you go on out to verballers.com, you get bonus episodes, ad-free content. You get all these episodes a little bit early. We're about to flip the switch here shortly on our in-season perks as well. So the best way to support what we do, verballers.com, verballers.com. If you check that out, if it's not for you, we understand. If nothing more, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any of our episodes, and so that other people can find it as well.
Agree.
Dan, let's talk about the Missouri Tigers, shall we?
I'm ready.
I feel like we might have a spirited discussion here.
Okay.
I like Eli Drinkwitz a lot. I do. I think he's a button pusher. I think he's a line stepper. I think he's fun as hell.
Okay. But
he gets guys playing for him. He has won 29 games in 3 seasons. But here's the but. 8-5 a year ago. Their record against unranked teams was 8-0. Their record against ranked teams was 0-5.
Yep.
A step further. 8-0 against teams that finished with losing records. 0-5 against teams that finished with winning records. Are you detecting a trend?
I am detecting a trend. Yes, continue.
I feel like we are in this perpetual state with Mizzou of waiting for things to click and get to that next level. And I don't know when that's going to happen. It always feels like there's a little bit more meat on the bone, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I'm struggling to put into words how that makes me feel as a college football fan. I certainly don't think that's going to happen this year either. And I said it back in part 1. Maybe I was a little bit harsh in my statements about Mizzou. I think I'm fully out on this team.
Really?
I think there are too many variables for me to feel anything good about them. I can certainly see the potential. The potential's obvious, and I'm sure we're going to talk through it here. But part of why I'm expecting that discussion, that spirited discussion with you, is because I know we disagree on this team. I'm fully out.
Okay. I don't think I'm as out. We'll see. I mean, look, a lot depends on Ahmad Hardy's recovery.
Yep.
And how close he is to approaching where he was last year, which was one of the absolute best running backs in America. You can't stumble into winning. Now, they didn't get it done against ranked teams, as you mentioned. I don't love the offensive coordinator hire. I have a lot of questions about where Austin Simmons is. I think there's a good amount of talent there. I think there's clear upside at receiver. I think the history of offensive line development is definitely good. Where they were on defense last year was crazy impressive, and there's a lot changing personnel-wise on this defense.
It's like all changing. It's all new.
It's a lot new, for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think you happen into a super productive defense. I think there is development that plays a part. I think there's evaluation. I think there is figuring out how to put your guys in the right place involved in Missouri's success on defense. They didn't lose all these games to ranked teams 52-3. I think they're good with a self-imposed ceiling. I don't think Mizzou has been able to fully figure out or keep healthy the quarterback position.
No.
That's a pretty big position.
It's a pretty big position.
Like they looked at Bo Perbula and they said, yes, he is ready to lead us into SEC play and beat great teams. And that didn't happen. And it didn't even come close to happening. And he was beat up, obviously. That's the issue. I think they downgraded an offensive coordinator. I think their defensive coordinator is very, very good.
Corey Batoon. Yeah, he's great.
But I don't like the hiring of like the journeyman coordinator on either side of the ball. I don't like that. It's like Chip Lindsey's been at like 6 teams in 7 years, 8 years. I don't like that stuff. Maybe it's bad luck. It seems like their destiny is now like as an 8-win program, and a ton of teams would take it in a major conference, but I'm not fully out. I'm not there.
I am.
They've put themselves in position to win enough that like breakthroughs are not far off. I cannot fully sell.
I'm of the mind that they're going 6-6 this year.
Wow.
I'm not a Mizzou fan this year. I'm not rooting actively against them, but just based on what I've been reading, I'm getting weird vibes. I was as high as anybody on Austin Simmons.
Same.
Before we saw him a year ago at Ole Miss. It just didn't work, and he's young. You know, he's now coming over to a new system, and perhaps this will work a little bit better. But the fact that Ahmad Hardy is going to be out for a while, right? He's healing. I think medically he's been cleared, but he's still kind of working through the paces, trying to get back out there on the field. I don't believe he's practicing quite yet. So we probably will see him at some point this season. Not having him back there is already going to set this offense back a little bit, albeit they got some experience. We talked about that back in part 1. Jamal Roberts, he's somebody who's very productive and can be used plug and play as a running back. So I don't think there's going to be an enormous drop off, but Ahmad Hardy is definitely a different kind of cat. I have questions about the offensive line in front of Austin Simmons, specifically at right tackle. Austin Simmons is a lefty, which means the right side of the line is the blind side.
Yeah.
And they had a rather significant injury on the right side of that line earlier this year. So it was supposed to be Josh Atkins. He was a transfer from Arizona State. He went down with a lower leg injury. Now it's basically an open competition to see who's protecting that blind side. So young quarterback without the primary running back, and maybe open question about who is going to protect the blind side. Don't like that. Don't feel great about that situation. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're replacing all 11 starters.
Yep.
And I like this defensive coordinator, but that's a lot, man.
It is.
That's an awful lot to lose. So you combine that, and then you look at their schedule, which in the SEC always, you want to play the sound just because we haven't played it yet?
The SEC is a gauntlet.
A little bit of runway. Okay, you'll take the runway of Arkansas Pine Bluff, who, by the way, I accidentally said played Oklahoma State a year ago. Apologize for that one. Wrote it down wrong. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kansas, Troy, and Mississippi State, first 4 games. I think they're going 4-0 against that.
Okay.
Great. But then after that, the final 8 games look like this. You ready?
I'm ready.
Florida, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. You do have Arkansas in there after a bye.
Yeah.
But you've also got Texas and Georgia back-to-back weeks, and then Kentucky and Oklahoma to end this thing. That's insane, man.
I will say this.
I don't think they're better than like most of the teams on the back half of that schedule.
Okay. So, Florida has Ole Miss a week before Mizzou. If you are going to feel anything about Missouri situationally as you roll your eyes at me, okay, there is something to Mizzou's schedule.
I'm rolling my eyes with you, not at you.
You're rolling your eyes
points.
with me.
These are fair points.
There are some advantages to when they play these teams. And I'm just telling you, all Mizzou has to be is good enough in some of these spots. You're right that they could start 4-0. They have Arkansas, which looks winnable in this moment in mid-August. I don't think they're going 6-6. I think they're better than that. Now, you're totally right to bring up the defense. It's an insane projection with what they're changing. When you change quarterback, you change defense, you change offensive coordinator, you have offensive line questions, which you're pointing out correctly so. I don't think you happen into this kind of consistency. So if they get anything out of Austin Simmons and he stays healthy, 2 big ifs, I guess, given their track
the consistency
record.
Last year was they couldn't beat teams with winning records.
Right. Well, they couldn't keep the quarterback healthy again. So, I don't know. I think they're well coached. I think Austin Simmons is going to be fine. I think the rotation guys stepping into bigger roles on defense are in a successful system. I understand there's a little bit of hopium involved here. Yeah, I think they can win 8 games.
I reserve the right to change my mind if Austin Simmons comes out and is all-world everything.
Right.
because I was in on Austin Simmons before it was cool. And then I was out, and I'm still out. But if he pops, then I'm going to get back in.
Right.
So I reserve the right to change my mind on this one. But I'm just like, I look at this, and I'm like, what am I latching on to? I'm latching on to Eli Drinkwitz because I know he fires up teams, and he's a bit of a wild card, which I love. I like the coordinator. But like everything else, like you said, it's a lot of hopium. So I'm out. I'm not doing this to myself.
But like, look, when you look at these teams, once again, yes, we love Texas and Georgia. I think we really like Oklahoma. Otherwise, there's no real concept for what these teams are or aren't. Like, you don't know what Florida's going to look like. What
we're
kind
recording
of
this on August 12th. We don't know that about anybody.
I know, but I'm saying there's a lot new, and or like you want to question like how Mizzou is built. Like, what's Florida going to look like? What's Ole Miss going to look like with all their new names? Kentucky. Do you feel great about Kentucky?
No, but what are you talking about? I love Florida. You know I love Florida.
I know, but what I'm saying is...
We just talked about Texas A&M. We could see the upside there. I think
you're talking about uncertainty with Mizzou, and there's not certainty all along this schedule. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So we disagree. What do you have them at?
8-4.
8-4?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Stability is currency, baby.
They're not stable.
Yeah, they are. They've got a lot of dudes who've been in this system.
All right. We disagree. Yell about this down in the comments, all right?
Yeah. There's a lot new
Say
on
hello
this
to
defense.
the bad guy. I'm the bad guy right here.
Okay.
Right here,
fair enough.
smiling.
Where are we going next?
Ole Miss.
Okay. I like Ole Miss.
Can we go full kimono here?
Please.
Can we open up the kimono?
Please do.
Full transparency.
Part it.
We cast our votes for the preseason All-American team.
Mm-hmm.
We voted for both Trinidad Chambliss and Keelon Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like a good time to do it. Okay. Yep. Both those guys are back. When your starting point is potentially an All-American quarterback and running back, I'd say you're in pretty good shape to start the year, no?
Yeah.
You'll take that. This team returned 61% of their production from a team that obviously went on a run to the semifinals a year ago. They added the number 2 portal class in America. I am, just speaking for myself, extremely spooked by the coaching turnover.
Yeah.
But I must admit, when we talked through our top 25 ballot, I was not feeling Ole Miss. I wasn't into them. Dug in a little deeper. Starting to feel the same way about Ole Miss that I do Tennessee.
Ooh, interesting.
Starting to feel like
you're talking yourself into them.
I overlooked these guys.
Okay.
On paper, this looks like a very, very good football team with a ton of upside. Now, the difference this year, obviously, is the coaching thing. Not just with the head coach, also with their coordinator, John David Baker, comes over from ECU.
They likely have a worse head coach than where they've been.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got questions at both the tackle positions. They lose a lot at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, there is an awful lot to like about this football team. And hand to God here, just being honest with the Reballerhood, I feel like this is another team like Tennessee that I kind of overlooked in a way that I now regret.
I like Ole Miss a good deal, too.
Yeah.
I think I like them a little bit more in part 1. But, again, their starting point is so much further than I think I thought about. That's barely English. I think they're further along roster-wise as many dudes that are new on this defense. I don't know, man. I'm just seduced by fun sometimes, and I think they're going to be very fun.
And I'm going to be honest with you here, and the Reballerhood, and people can annihilate me in the comments if they want.
Yeah.
solidverbal@gmail.com. I really don't care. I've been doing this too long anyway. I feel like part of my preseason bias towards or against, I guess, Ole Miss was rooted in the fact that I watched one too many Pete Golding interviews, and I found him very uninspiring.
He was not convincing.
No. And that's probably the wrong reason to form any kind of opinion about a team. You know, I know that now, and I think I recognize that, and I'm obviously giving voice to it here. But we have a long off season, And we spend a lot of time thinking about these teams, and especially the ones that have new coaches. And to go from like that vortex of watching just endless Pete Golding interviews to this moment that happened within the last, week and a half, where I'm looking over this roster, I'm looking over the actual source material, the research stuff that we look at and we trust to put these things together. And I'm just like, oh man, I gotta have a conversation with myself because this team looks like they're going to be a really, really good team again.
You're right to question the tackle thing. I would be a little bit worried about the secondary, I think, if I were an Ole Miss fan and seeing some of the quarterbacks that seem to be high level on this schedule. If they're not getting home as often as this defense was able to last year, especially as the season progressed, that would be worrisome that a lot of these guys could be caught in bad positions against good quarterbacks.
Safety, right? Safety's the portal position.
Yeah. Look, they have an all SEC caliber linebacker, edge guy, whatever, do everything, do it in Centarian Perkins. But yeah, to me, it's also just like a star power thing on this defense. I think they have good players, but gravitational type players, that's a worry. They're counting on, rotation guys from bigger places to fill big roles up front on this defense. That's not the thing that gives me the most confidence. But I think they're going to be able to get off the field enough paired with this offense. I think, look, a great way to develop receivers is to have a quarterback who's not only excellent, but excellent at buying time, excellent at scrambling, giving your receivers more time to get open in a scramble drill. It's a great way to develop as a receiver, or at least develop production. So I think Ole Miss is going to be in a good place this year. I don't think they're as good as they were last year, but I'm not counting them out of basically any of these games.
No, I think that's a fair place to be with this. And more to the point of the new offensive coordinator, I don't think it's like a rebuild. He's not ripping this thing down to the studs and starting over. I said back in part one, it looks to be about 80% the same, or, maybe I'm confusing that with someone else. But regardless, I don't think they want to change too much of what worked a year ago, especially given that you've got the personnel at both quarterback and running back that, propelled this team to crazy heights a year ago. So I like Trinidad Chambliss a lot. Obviously, like we said, we voted for him for the All-American team. He just, of the choices available to us, he's arguably the most accomplished quarterback, right?
Yes. So
there's a lot to like here. And if you've got that as a starting point, I think the floor can only be so low.
I agree. Look, there's also the home road splits aren't bad for Ole Miss, especially as they finish at home a good deal, getting Mizzou at home, Auburn at home, Georgia at home, Mississippi State at home in the back half of this schedule. So getting some of those seemingly winnable moments at home. Vandy on the road seems like it'll be competitive. The Florida game on the road after LSU is going to be extremely difficult for just environmental and situational reasons. They get LSU early enough. That game is fraught with emotion. It's frenzied, and it's frenzied because it's in Oxford, yes? Lane Kiffin returning home. So I don't hate how the schedule seems to shake out. So, yeah, I think there's an interesting ceiling here.
What do you think about Mississippi State?
I really like watching from a TV show perspective the Camario Taylor experience.
Do you? Okay.
Yes. I think there's a lot there. There was some shown in kind of a raw manner last year as he got more and more snaps. His offensive line might be catastrophically bad.
Well, listen, Jeff Lebby says he feels great about 6 offensive linemen.
Great.
He said they're the best 6 offensive linemen he's had at Mississippi State.
That's not saying much, perhaps.
Does not change the fact that they're still in flux at left tackle.
Yeah.
Does not change the fact that this line is a portal rebuild a year after they gave up like 40 sacks, whatever the number ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're looking for dominance up front. I think they're looking for some level of competence. I think if they can get some level of competence, they'll be immensely better for it. I just don't know if we can count on that. It's a lot new. Obviously, Jeff Lebby knew it was an area that they needed to address. That's why it was a focus of theirs in the portal. So I'm going to assume that it is better. And to your point, if it's just marginally better, the TV show around Kamario Taylor is very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw a very limited sample size out of this guy at quarterback a year ago. 629 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not the highest completion percentage, but definitely can move with the ball. 82 carries for 458 yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. So he is a dual threat guy that you can build around. I love that we still got our guy Fluff Bothwell back there in the backfield at RB1. I like Anthony Evans III out wide. It does hurt to lose Brennan Thompson, their receiver who set some records. But I think there is, provided the line can be sufficient or marginally competent, I think there is enough around Kamario Taylor to at least make the TV show fun for the rest of us watching from afar.
I am not there with this offensive line. I'm just not, and I'm not there with this defense as much as I like that Zach Arnett is back, hopefully to help stabilize it a little bit.
Right.
I just don't think it's built to compete week in, week out. I think there's going to be so much asked of this offense. It's just, I think it's too tall a task. I think I could squint and say 5-7, 6-6, but that would require such a surge forward to me. It's hard to feel terribly confident.
I'm 3 or 4 wins.
So you have to win at Minnesota in week 2, which is not an easy ask.
I'm not. By the way, we're not saying they will or they should, but if you're trying to build the case for Mississippi State, yes, you would have to beat Minnesota for that.
You can not like South Carolina. You can make the case for not liking them. You made the case for not liking Mizzou. Vanderbilt is in Starkville, and they're starting over in a number of ways on offense. Egg Bowl's always crazy. Auburn's new and it coming to town and has some questions. Kamario Taylor has to be like of all SEC quality for them to go to a bowl. I'm not saying he isn't. The best of him just might be.
Yeah.
And it could be a really good system that, you play with tempo, you get the ball out quickly, you RPO and do the sort of wide option route type stuff that Jeff Lebby likes to do. That you're making quicker decisions and you can hide an offensive line deficiency. They have to be so clearly better immediately, though. That's the question.
I don't think I'm quite as pessimistic as you on the defensive side, though.
Okay.
Like you said, Zach Arnett is back. A little bit of like a Brent Pry thing going on, seeing as how he used to be the head coach. Now he's back as defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He runs a 3-3-5. The 3-3-5, we've talked about it a couple times over now throughout the course of our previews here. It is different than what most teams see from week to week, sort of an enigma to figure out.
Yeah.
If you remember what Brett Bielema said and his rationale for switching things up, his whole thought process was, A, gives teams a bit of a eephus pitch to try and adjust to when they're used to seeing other systems. And B, it's really hard to get blue chip caliber defensive linemen. And Zach Arnett, to that very point, has proven very capable of getting more with less, especially up front.
Yeah.
They're going to be relying a lot on Dalen Evans, their transfer from A&M, to be that space eater, the nose tackle up front, who can enable the guys behind him to maybe flow a little bit more freely and create some of those plays that they're looking to get. But I think the secondary looks like it could be solid. I'm not saying this is a finished product, and we know it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb for Mississippi State, but I think there's reason for optimism on that side of the ball, and certainly the TV show on the offensive side of the ball could be a lot of fun as well. So when I say 3 or 4 wins, this is not me saying that they're going to be bottom of the barrel and unwatchable. I actually think the contrary. Okay. I think they'll be a highly watchable team. I just think they're coming up against a bunch of teams that are way better than them.
Right.
And they won't have a choice but to be scrappy, maybe pull an upset, maybe keep it close for 3.5 quarters before we eventually see them end up taking the L.
But isn't that what we saw last year?
Yes.
And they got the 5 wins.
Yeah.
So
when I looked at the schedule, I was thinking of that scenario that everyone's been in. When you're driving down the highway and it looks nice out, maybe it's a little bit cloudy, and then bam, a downpour hits the windshield.
Right.
the microburst. You're driving into it. Because as you said, UL Monroe, Minnesota, South Carolina, and Mizzou to start this thing off, which isn't all going to be easy, but it's considerably easier than the games that they have after that, especially in October. Alabama at LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas. Boom. Get your wins early, man. Got to get them early if you're going to get them at all.
They were, look, how many minutes, seconds, whatever, last year away from Tennessee, Florida, and Texas wins?
Yeah, it's true.
They were not that far off last year.
No. You're right.
Yeah.
Two more teams, Dan. We've got Alabama. We've got Auburn. Let's start with Alabama.
Okay. This is probably the deepest we've into an episode, a preview episode that we've ever gotten to Alabama. Yeah.
Yep. We're trying to keep people around. That's why
That's true.
Same reason they put the weather on at the end of the local newscasts. Try and keep people watching. You know how it works.
Yeah.
We put Bama at number 11 in our AP poll. I think they've got a playoff caliber defense. I think they've got an offense that is relatively unknown. As I said back in part one, I think Bama is actually quite easy to project this year.
Okay.
The ceiling depends on their young quarterback, probably Keelon Russell, and whether or not they rebuilt the line enough to actually run the football.
Yep.
That's the whole shebang for me.
And they hired a new offensive line coach to help with
Adrian
that.
Clem,
Yeah.
right? So this is part of a broader conversation about what Alabama did now. Kalen DeBoer recognized fairly early on last season and certainly this offseason that they needed to get better along the line, that they needed to build something of a rushing attack, if only to try and support their young quarterback, whoever it ends up being.
Right.
Whether it's a young guy, truly a young guy in Keelon Russell, or not as young a guy, but an inexperienced guy in Austin Mack. Either way, you need a run game to support that quarterback. And so that's what they tried to do. They went out, they tried to rebuild the line via the portal. They hired a new offensive line coach. They're hoping that they can get something of a ground game going this year. Because if they don't, again, I don't think it portends well for the success of this team. I happen to like what they did. I happen to be very optimistic that even though we could look at the offensive line as something of a weakness in context, given what we saw a year ago, I happen to think with some sort of like renewed focus on the position and changing the mindset, hopefully they can get things that like jump started on that side.
Sure.
So I feel personally pretty good about what I saw on that side of the ball. I also happen to think that Keelon Russell is going to be the next superstar in college football.
Okay.
I watched
Not unreasonable. Yeah.
I watched a ton of Keelon Russell clips before he ever stepped foot on a college field, college practice field. I watched a ton of Keelon Russell as a recruit. Keelon Russell as a recruit, the comp was Jaden Daniels. Kind of a leaner build, but crazy athletic, has the arm talent to attack you everywhere on the field, and isn't necessarily a scramble first type of guy, but much like Jaden Daniels, if he does get on the run, he can kill you. That's the type of player I think this is, and I fully expect he will be QB1 when they make the official announcement. They haven't done that yet. So maybe there'll be something out of left field. Everyone seems to think it'll be Keelon Russell. I think he is a superstar. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can wrap him with a line and perhaps a little bit of a ground assault, it's going to make him all the better for it. That's part of why I'm so high on this Alabama team this year, especially given the fact that both Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb have such a track record in developing quarterbacks.
Yep.
Has anything I said sounded too far afield for you?
No, I think there's the star power upside of Keelon Russell is obvious to anybody who's watched his high school or limited Bama cut-ups.
Yeah.
I think he should be throwing to, if these receivers are truly hitting their potential, a really good receiving core.
They're better than really good. Yeah.
Well, it's now Ryan Coleman Williams, but Ryan Williams did not have a good 2025.
He didn't, but Lottie Brooks had a pretty good year. He came on.
Lottie Brooks was great. Lazier Brooks, yeah.
There is something of a question about wide receiver depth.
But there's young guys that, C.D. Morgan, Sedarian Morgan stepping in.
Yeah,
guys like him.
That's sort of my thing. Like we could sit here now in August and say, wow, they don't have depth at wide receiver. It's not the depth that we're used to. I don't know. This is a system that produces wide receivers.
I think they'll be really good.
Yeah. I mean, they produce wide receivers. Wide receivers before. DeBoer has been very good at doing that, so I'm not as concerned about that.
Talent running back, we can agree. Whether or not the running game is productive and fixed, different conversation.
Daniel Hill is a bowling ball with eyes.
Yeah.
And I am enamored with their freshman EJ Crowell.
Yeah. Fair.
So, yeah, they've got talent.
There's something very strange about watching Alabama because we had watched them play so many huge games under Nick Saban, and it's totally unfair, but Nick Saban casts a pretty long shadow with this program where you watch players on this team and you look at who is going to step into specific roles and you think, it's weird that they're not obviously of Alabama quality, even though Alabama is a school just like every other school that changes every year. But you're just like, man, these monsters have been waiting in the wings and were like crazy good at, rotation defensive tackle last year or inside linebacker. Now it's their turn to shine. They don't have those dudes on both sides of the line of scrimmage in the way that they used to. Again, not fair to compare to the Nick Saban era. But when you look at who's stepping in along the defensive line, at least next to Yanze Pierre, who looks like a complete world dominator.
He's going to be a problem. Yeah.
He's going to be everything. He's going to be so good. But they were so good at linebacker last year. Now it's a question. Are they going to get pass rushing out of anybody else other than Yanze Pierre in that front? Probably somewhat. It's not obvious, which is weird to say about Alabama in this moment. And so I look at their secondary and I say, yeah, they look to be of Alabama quality.
Yeah. Bray Hubbard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All these guys.
Yeah.
But that's the worrisome thing to me, that we're having line of scrimmage questions, or at least I have a line of scrimmage question. We saw it come out last year with the rushing attack or lack thereof. The other thing that I actually really like about Alabama is when they're strong, they seem to win games.
Right.
When they're not so strong, they also seem to win a lot of those games. That Keelon DeBoer is terrific. There's a tennis coach, Brad Gilbert, who I think wrote a book called Winning Ugly. Keelon DeBoer wins. It's not always pretty. It's not always dominant. You look at last year's, LSU and Mizzou and Iron Bowl, and you're like, those are not pretty games. They won them. Winning is better than losing. Winning is a skill. Keelon DeBoer has that skill. So I like Alabama a good deal this year, but damn, do I want to see the large bodies produce.
Yeah.
And it's still very strange to me saying I have beef questions.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very optimistic about this Alabama team, and I kind of wanted to put them higher.
They did finish looking like trash in the SEC championship game and the playoff game against Indiana. They were not prepared to score points in either of those games.
In fairness, everybody looked like trash against Indiana. 3
points on a neutral site?
I get it. And Alabama, though they initially looked like trash in that playoff game against Oklahoma, came on like the full head of steam and ended up winning. So that's a credit to them to get into that game, to win that game despite being down so much early.
A team to whom they did lose ugly a few weeks prior.
This is true.
Oklahoma.
This is true. And I think I know Alabama fans would be the first to admit as much, that it's definitely been a transition going from the Saban era to the DeBoer era. It's still a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to think this quarterback's going to be sensational.
And that'll cover for a lot.
It covers for a lot. So I think they'll be fine. I think the first month is manageable, but then they play Georgia, then they're at Tennessee. They've got A&M. They've got a road game later in the year in November at LSU. Yep. So it'll get tough later, but I think 9-3, 10-2 for these guys. I think this is going to be a very, very good team led by defense until they can kind of settle in on offense, provided the line pops and is something better than it was a year ago, maybe opening things up on the ground. I think this is a very, very good team with potentially a star at quarterback.
Yeah, I have them as 10-2.
We agree.
We agree.
Let's close this thing out with another new coach.
Let's.
Alex Golesh, Dan.
Yeah.
Alex Golesh. So they fired Hugh Freeze back in November. They hired Alex Golesh from USF to be the replacement. I think he's a great hire at Auburn. I think he's a great hire both in terms of his personality as well as the system that he's going to try and put in place in year one. I talk a lot about John Summerall being something of a psycho. Alex Golesh isn't not a psycho. He's almost there as well. Some of the same tendencies, though maybe not as weird on Mike as we're seeing with Summerall. What I like about Golesh is that he's got a very defined offensive system. And now he's got the quarterback in Byron Brown, who already ran it pretty well at South Florida. It's not just Byron Brown. It's a bunch of guys from USF who ran the system who are now coming over with Golesh from USF.
Yeah, bunch of receivers, tight end,
Yeah, this is another blended family situation like we see up at Penn State, right? It's a lot of guys that come over from USF, fair amount of returners from Auburn as well. They're trying to piece it together. The offense is going to look like a lot of tempo, but it's also one that favors the run. He tends to call it a run-first offense. And so to that end, I like that they bring back Jeremiah Cobb at running back. Seen some reports that he looks bigger. He's going to need to be bigger because they're going to maybe lean on him a little bit heavier this year.
Yeah.
Receiver room, again, more guys that ran this system at USF. Sean Singleton, and then let's just call it the law firm of Koger, Neptune, and Nimrod.
Yeah.
Chaz Nimrod,
Okay,
great
Chaz,
name. Great name. If Byron Brown can translate, and if this version of an offensive line can hold up, I think this system could take flight pretty quickly and be rather interesting, plucky, if you will, against other SEC competition. If it does not, or I should say, if just one of those things does not, be it the line, be it Byron Brown, be it receivers who for some reason can't get open against an SEC secondary, if just one of those things fails, they're not making a bowl. So I feel like there's a very, very slim margin for error here for Golesh in year one. I like the guy. I think he will build this program up. I think he's got a track record for winning. And I think he will do that. But you got to give him time. And if it doesn't hit right away on all three of those fronts, it's probably going to be a developmental year that we look at in retrospect and say, well, it took a little bit for him to get things going.
Right.
But eventually he did. I'm confident that he will. I'm just like speaking truth to power here that a lot has to go right in year one in order for this to be like a bowl eligible type season for Auburn.
Right. I think I really like this Auburn team.
Okay.
I'm not enamored. I'm not in love. But the more I think about it, right, it's a very specific offensive system. Byron Brown, I think, will be able to succeed to some extent in the SEC. He was lighting everybody up, basically, in the American.
He was. I'm just, and I said this back in part one, like I'm not ready to just sort of hand wave the whole idea of Byron Brown not working out.
Right.
Because it is a step up. He's playing SEC defenses every week. He's a tough guy, and I think everyone likes him. I think he's obviously a good fit for the offense. It's basically tailor-made for him. But I'm just, SEC defenses are a different breed than what he's used to being up against.
I'm totally with you. Their schedule, by the way, if you're going to talk about like gumpiness and weirdness of opponent, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like they get a ton in sandwich spots, in letdown spots, and look-ahead spots. And if this offense is a pain in the ass, if Byron Brown is a pain in the ass, if the line in front of him does work out, which I think is an open question, they're going to be such a pain for so many of these teams. I don't know what their defense is going to be. I think they take a step down in terms of upside and talent and star power, whatever, on defense.
Right.
There's still some there, but they have had to bring in a lot in the portal.
Well, you lose like Keldrick Falk.
Yeah.
Huron Crawford.
I don't know what the secondary holds.
New corners. Yeah.
But I think they're going to be fun, feisty, and dangerous. I think they're an obvious bowl team right now. I don't know exactly what their ceiling is. I think they're going to be in a lot of like 30 to 28 type games. And it's just going to come down to like late fourth quarter execution. I mean, Byron Brown, I think the best of him is terrifying. So I have them at like 7-5, 8-4, somewhere in there.
8-4 would be great. Wow.
8-4 would be terrific.
I mean,
I have them as a bowl team.
I'm looking at the schedule. I see Baylor week 1. They should beat Baylor.
I think so.
I'm not crazy about Baylor at
Neutral
all.
site.
Southern Miss, that's a win. That's 2. Vandy, I think they're good enough to beat Vandy. That's 3. Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Samford. If they win those games, which all look very winnable, 6-6 is right there.
Yeah, Mississippi State on the road, which is its own, can of worms, but yeah.
Right. But the over is 6.5 for good reason.
Sure.
Because after those 6 games that I just mentioned, who comes next? Who is the next win? And there are a lot of tough teams on here. There's Alabama, there's Ole Miss, there's LSU, there's Georgia, there's Tennessee.
And they're on the road. Tennessee, Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss are on the road.
So I look at this and I say to myself, they could be very dangerous and very interesting and extremely plucky if it all works.
Yeah.
But if a couple of those systems fail, not only are they losing those 6 other games, but there are probably some that I just mentioned and counted as wins that could potentially be losses. So I like this team too. I like Alex Golish. I happen to be on the side of like 6-6 or 7-5.
Yep.
For this team, I probably would say 7-5. But I'm very leery of what could go wrong given this setup.
Another team, this is why we called Hugh Freeze an elite loser. It's not a team that was far off. Now, it's different talent, it's different systems, different coaches, and whatever. But just in terms of the vibes, just in terms of the guys returning on both sides of the ball, this is not a team that was far off. This is not a, rebuild down to the studs, even though they are bringing in a ton of USF players to rebuild things. It's not a catastrophic place.
No.
Maybe every other year it is. But Auburn is a place that the right coach, the right players can win. The support is there. Maybe the alignment's not there constantly to build it in the long term. But 1-score losses, they went 1-7, I think, in the SEC last year. They're like a minute and a half away from going 4-3, or 5-3 or something, 4-4.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't think they're that far off. I don't think there's that much to fix. The schedule works out if you believe in the situational stuff, but there's a lot of losses here. 7-5.
7-5. All right. You heard where we stand.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you, Verballerhood. Let us know where you stand. solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know where you agree, where you disagree, where we missed something, where we messed something up, where we got something right. We always love to hear where we got something right. Please let us know. Please do rate, review, and subscribe if you made it this far. And head on out to verballers.com. That is our Patreon. That is the best way to support what we do. We will be talking more about it in the coming days and weeks as we build here for the 2026 season. We will have our flagship game, Run the Board, that we will open the doors to a little bit later on in the month of August that we'll be talking a fair amount about. Of course, again, you get access to all of that stuff by signing up at verballers.com as a certified or premium verballer.
I think it's a great idea.
Dan, we made it.
We did it.
We did it. Go back and listen to the intro to the 2026 season, both of the episodes that we put out there covering the G6 conferences, and then the 3-parters that we did for the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and now the SEC. We've got one more coming up. We will do a prediction special in advance of week 0, but in the meantime, we're going to take a little bit of deep breath. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself over here, Ty Hildenbrand, thank you for downloading, for listening, for supporting what we do. We'll talk to you all soon. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.